What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the After Bedtime Podcast. I'm here with a great father, a man that has gotten into amazing shape. He doesn't know that I noticed all those things. A man that is an amazing dad of two kids, a wonderful husband, a businessman, a very intellectual man. Kwame Crooks, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, man. Really honored. Anytime you reach out to me, I'm honored because I'm like, man, who, me? I'm doing a good job? Making me feel like I'm doing a good job. I don't know about that, but
Yeah, man. I've watched from afar. I watched from afar on you, and I think there was a conversation we had a long time ago. We met through Halisi. Shout out to Halisi. Love you, man. Um, and we were at some, I think it was like a political like
yeah,
coalition
yeah,
or
yeah.
something like
Yep,
that.
yep.
And And that's where we
Mhm.
originally met, and I just remember that I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember walking away from that conversation, I was like, "I really like this guy." And I was like, "This guy is, like, really smart and, uh, like, very like-minded in a lot of ways," and it always stuck with me, and then we did the podcast together, and, like, I'm excited to be able to have you back on again. So,
Thank you.
for me, it's always a treat to be able to talk with you, and, like, I do think that you're genuinely a good guy and a genuinely a smart guy, and I see it, all through social media from all the things that you have posted, but, like, definitely, like, you being in amazing shape, that has been an inspiration to me. I remember it was like maybe a year ago, I saw something, and I saw you were doing jump ropes and you had your shirt off, and I was like, "Whoa." I was like, "This guy, look at this." I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." And I wanted to ask you about that, like, have you always? Maybe you just hit it? Maybe, like, it's just like you wear big clothes and, like, I don't really ever see it, but, uh how has fitness been such a big part of your journey? It seems like your wife too
Yeah.
as well. Like you guys like really kind of are fitness is a huge component of like your family dynamic. Where did that kind of come from?
So it was always part of her. So my wife was a heavier woman even when we met. So she was bigger by the most part. Even people were saying that because I don't want to sound disparaging, but she was bigger. So she always kind of struggled with her weight and weight management. And but she is one of the things about her which I love is she is when she puts her mind to something, like when she decides this is what it is, like she's gone, right? She's very disciplined when she's ready, right? And so when she used to do CrossFit and she dropped a ton of weight. And I felt really bad when she decided to get pregnant because like, damn, dude, like I'm gonna mess up your body, right? Like I feel bad. I told her that, like, you're gonna have my baby, I'm just gonna mess it all up. You put in all that work and whatnot, right? So said, so done or whatever, but then she gets right back on it, right? And she starts grinding it out. I was never really a big gym guy, right? I was a martial artist, like through junior high school or high school. So jujitsu, karate, and so I was never really a big gym guy. Played some basketball or whatever, but nothing big. So I was always a skinny dude. And growing up in New York, growing up in New York and then, living in Jamaica, being in that community, people don't really work out like that, right? Like the skinny guy gets played just as much as the build guy gets played, at least at that age. Hindsight, retrospect, right? At least at that age. And so it was never anything for me. And then when I remember coming out to Arizona and it's a whole different ball game, right? It's a whole different ball game out here. Uh, but I'm like, yo, whatever. So I ain't really worried about it. But then probably 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, yeah, 4 years ago. I started like hitting the gym and just trying to, get not fit, but just like put on more muscle, but really just to do something to get active, right? Because I wasn't really doing anything, you know what I mean? And about 2 years ago, I had a health scare. I had a health scare. The I go in for a test one day. Through the process, they're like, "Hey, you're pre-diabetic." Now, my dad's been diabetic since I was like 10, right? My uncle died from diabetes, went blind, lost a leg, right? And my grandmother, his mom's been diabetic as far as I know, right? And like, all that stuff, and then being black, pre-diabetes, all that stuff. So it was always a fear for me, and I love candy, right? So um it was at that point,
Me too.
I don't do baked goods, but candy, man. Um,
What's your candy of
anything
choice? What
sour,
is it?
sour patch, sour straws, airhead belts. Listen, I'll go ham. Lemon heads, lemon heads, and Ike's, like, I go for it. The watermelons, all of them, I love them. So I'll always bang on those. And I didn't drink a lot of sodas, but I drink sodas, right? And so, but I never drank water. So they say like you're pre-diabetic, and like I just got shook, like scared, in tandem with all the scare that came in. I was like, yo, not happening, right? And so literally I just locked in on my food, which helped her, right? Because, if which is which thing we learned, right? Like if only one of you two are like completely locked in, it's hard for either of you to really hit your goals because the temptation's built into the household, and the empathy for the temptation is easy to just say, just go ahead. So there's no real accountability except for you. So if you want to go far, you go with someone else. If you want to go fast, go by yourself, right? This is a journey. We got to go far. So when I locked in, it was easier for her to lock in. And yeah, it's been a big game changer since.
Yeah. Wow. So you brought up something that I think is an important lesson in like when you live all in one household, when one person is trying to achieve something, the atmosphere since like around it should also be cultivated towards that common goal. Now, with you going on this fitness journey, how is that? And changing your diet and making those necessary changes. How have you seen your children like kind of like respond to that? Like, how is that impact? Because I imagine you guys are all now eating the same way, or you're at least close to eating the same way. No, you cook like different meals, or you make separate things for
Ah,
you. And
yeah, we do. We do.
wow,
And it's hard, man. I'd love to say that the whole family's locked in, but for here's the thing, they're 11 and 7. So I can't like they don't need to be eaten as strictly as I do or we do. You know what I mean? Like they can afford burgers and more often and Chick-fil-A and whatever it is. So typically like we don't we worry about us, which is most of the time me worrying about us, right? Structuring what we go eat for the week or whatever. And then nine out of 10 times we just make them like pasta. They'll eat Chick-fil-A a couple of times a week, not a couple of times a week, maybe once a week, maybe, that kind of thing. But we don't really too tough because like this, they're limited, they can afford it, right? They're not gonna, they need a lot of nutrients a lot more nutrients. Not, we all need nutrients, but they need a lot more variety, and then how it is with kids. It's sometimes like my 7-year-old, he doesn't want to eat certain things, or he says he doesn't eat certain things. And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and fight with you over it, bro. Like, sure, go ahead and eat that. You know what I mean? But what I won't do, we're not sous
yeah,
chefs for them in this house. That's what we're not, right? Like, what are you getting? That's what it is. If you don't want to eat it, fine. Don't ask me for that. Right. But they eat a lot of fruits. So, like, it's like even the choices that are not necessarily protein heavy is not bad choices. I love for my oldest, who's he's heavy on ball, to eat more protein. So, but it's hard for me to give him because he's out of school. He's out of the house for 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? So I don't know what they're feeding him in school that's really supporting that. So I try to give him some eggs in the morning and get him started on the right foot in the morning. And then, I mean, he's heavy on the protein at night too as well. Steaks. He likes chicken. He actually eats a salad. My youngest doesn't won't eat a salad. You know what I mean? So I don't really have to overthink it too much.
yeah, yeah. See, it sounds like you guys like kind of have a kind of a balanced approach to it. What is what is a healthy snack that you found on this fitness journey that's not the sour things, it's better than that, but it gives you something that kinda helps you keep going on, the journey of maintaining that, nutritional value? Nothing? There's not a
Yo,
single one? I'm
you
gonna
know
give you
what?
some then. Well, like, 'cause I think that there are healthier Like, have you ever done, like, rice cakes with, like, jelly on them?
I don't eat rice. I stopped. So, I'll eat rice, like, I'll go get sushi, and I'll eat rice on the sushi, right? But listen, if I eat rice once a month, I eat rice a lot.
Okay, got you. So are you like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, not
again.
to get it spoil like, y'all, we're about to get into, like, some serious diet, nutrition, macros, so, like, you're, like, really controlling your carbohydrates, like, like, with your macros, like, is it, like what, like, percentage of your macros is carbohydrates?
So I can't tell you the percentages because I usually don't look at it from the percentage, and I actually took that option off because it was confusing me. What I'll tell you is, what I'll tell you is, I'm trying to do about 230 grams of protein per day. My limit on fat, I think somewhere around like no, sorry, limits on fat is like 85, 80, something like that. And then my carbs, though it's listed now at about 120, on average, I'm probably doing about 60 or 80. So like when I got the pre-diabetic
Yeesh.
situation, I told the nutritionist, so I went hard, like I went hard. So I went really hard, bro. So I went to this clinic where they have an in-house nutritionist, right? So they do they do blood tests once a quarter, you do a DEXA once a quarter, and they got an in-house nutritionist. Right. And they'll give you a workout plan, but I really eat all that. And then they'll also give you like once a month you can get like recovery shots or immune boosters, all this other shit. But anyway, but I told her, I was like, listen, I want to get this beat in 6 months. She's like, that's aggressive. So she put me on 40 grams of carbs per day. I beat it in 7 months. Flipped,
Wow.
came back up, and now it's back down, right? And trying to maintain. So even though I'm at my goal is, or my limit is 118, no, 130, something like that, I'm really trying to hit like 60 per day, which allows me to go ahead and say like, yo, I'm about to go eat that pack of sour straws, you know, or get this
I get
popcorn.
you. You plan it so that you can give yourself a little bit of that's smart. I get it. Man, that's like, and how long have you been consistently on this diet? Like, do you take cycles off or like
If I messed up messed up over the holidays, but consistent 2 years.
wow. No cheat days?
I mean, I don't like to call it cheat days. The days I mess up. And listen, and a lot of people think like you're extra. I do cheat. I do cheat. Right. But if I cheat, I'm making it worth it. You know what I mean? Like, it's worth it. You know what I mean? So yes, there are cheat days. So if we want to call it a cheat, like if we go, if we go out to Avondale, for anybody listening, like Avondale from where I'm at is like a 40-minute drive, right? For a tournament. When you come back, you go through Phoenix. They got the stand off of McDowell, the stand burger. Fire, okay?
Yeah.
Fire burger, drive-through
Yeah.
spot, right? And the
Yeah.
fries are amazing, right? I don't eat potatoes, but I'm stopping them getting the potatoes and the burgers, right? So, and
Nice.
we only go to
Yeah.
Avondale maybe once a quarter, maybe, right? Um, so like we'll grab that every now and then, you know what I mean? So that will be like a cheat day, I guess, you know? But even then, like there's nothing to cheat. I don't look at it as cheat days, right? Because like if you want to call a cheat day for me is like I just went with my boy. My boy came into town. We went over across the street. Um, Tacos, right? Right, because the tortilla or whatever, right? Like
Love it. Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
instead of eating only 3, I might eat 6.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Why
why
not?
not?
And those are flour.
I
Do
don't
you do
like
corn
corn. It don't
tortillas?
taste good. I just don't do it. I'll do flour. Yeah,
No.
I'm going in. I'm going in. Or like when I go to New York in July,
Well,
get
okay.
some dumplings, right? When I get Jamaican food, like that'll be a treat.
Yeah. But really, you're talking like once a quarter. Like really, like that's kind of like how much you kind of take off of when you're not doing that's impressive, man. Like I have to give you like credit and I know like it comes obviously from like, this desire to make sure that like your health is in the best possible position. Um in that same vein, like what do you think about like motivation, like as it kind of pertains to like being a dad? Because I've asked like dads this question, like, and my son just recently did a podcast with me and asked me like a similar question, and like I don't know if like what motivates me as a dad sometimes is fear, like the fear of something happening, right? Versus like an inspiration or looking forward to something, right? Do you feel that you have like, does it lean more for you of like as a dad, like you're in a fear of stage, and that could be also matched with the age group that they're
Yeah.
at? I don't know what it's like to have a 40-year-old
Yeah.
son. I don't know, is that same
Yeah.
thing there? Um, but do you feel like when you get those like fear of moments, or is there more of like a virtuous like inspiration towards like when it comes to you and your parenting, at least right now?
I think it's all the above. It's definitely fear for sure. Uh, is a motivating factor, but you always, at least for me, I always got to temper it with you can't run your life by fears. I know what I don't want to have, and that's kind of an accountability level or natural accountability. But then the motivation or the virtuousness of it is it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? So it's like I never watched the actual movie, but I always see a clip. Denzel and it was a play. They made a movie, and then they made it turn into a movie, and he was in the play. Fences,
Fences,
yes, in that scene.
fences,
Yeah,
father
where he
son
tells him,
kind
he's
of thing.
like,
Is that
"Yo,
what yeah.
you think I feed you and clothe you because I like you? I feed you and clothe you because I have responsibility to you. I mean, me and your mother made you. So from a virtual perspective, this is why I do it, right? It just so happens
Yeah.
I want to have a relationship with you, so I want to make sure I'm going to do things to try not to mess you up in the long run and hopefully create a relationship that we can sustain as adults, right? So it's a little bit of all the above, right? You got to have some fear. And anyone, I think, any dad who says they're not moving or trying, not forget dad, any man, to be quite frank, not trying to achieve, build, progress, whatever it is in life, and it's not based on fear, is lying to themselves.
I would agree with you on that I think that like I think we may not look at it as
Hmm.
fear, but that's
Hmm.
what it is, right? Like we might try to tell ourselves in mind that like, well, I just don't want this to happen.
Hmm.
Or I don't want it to end
Hmm.
like this. And it's like that's fear. That's what that is. Like you have a fear of this happening, so it motivated you to kind of push you into a different way. And it's just, I guess like the reason why I asked is because I feel like as dads, like you get such a unique perspective on life because there's the traditional construct, let's say, from a societal perspective of what a dad is, right? And what he's supposed to be, right? You as that person are now immersed in the practice of it, right? So let's say like society has the theory of, and then you're now in the practice of, which is different than the
Hmm.
theory of. And you're seeing that the macho, never afraid, always tough, uh, you know, provider is not necessarily as prominent as you would think it would be, considering how
Yeah.
it's showcased and how it's believed to be, or how you're taught even to operate. The concept of fear for me has kind of changed, and I don't look at it necessarily always. It's almost like with failure, like achieving something, like it's not a bad thing to be in to have like a fear of something, but you said something very powerful, and I want to know that you can't let your life be ruled by fear. I see it as also like it, but it's not necessarily a
Mhm.
bad thing to
Mhm.
be afraid of
Mhm.
something,
Mhm.
um, and to be cognizant of that fear.
No, y
Like when you think about you got a son right now that's my oldest boy that is amazing at hoops. I've seen the progression because I remember when they were playing in the
yeah.
same league, and now seeing some of the videos that I've seen, I'm like, wow, this kid he's
Mhm.
put in the
Mhm.
work. He's actually done that. With you seeing these transitions and noticing the things that are in your mind that there's fearful of. Are there things that you're seeing your son go through that kind of embody where these two for a man kind of meet in our society? You have to be strong, tough, yada yada yada, and then it's like, no, it's okay to acknowledge you're afraid of that, but now we can respond to that.
Percent. I don't think I've had an opportunity, and now that I do it, now that you said that the way you did, I'm gonna try to keep it in mind going forward. Haven't been able to give him the message like, I understand now that you're afraid of it, now you gotta respond to it. That's a lie. No, I have. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Maybe not as eloquently and caring as you just put it. I mean, to answer your question, I'm in the process right now with him, for me, all right, is, yo, y'all kids is soft. Y'all soft. Y'all so soft.
I know what you're saying. I know it. I want to say it too. I was about to
Y'all
say it.
so soft.
They're
God, y'all
different.
soft, but this dad told me one day, this dad told me one day, it's hard to go train when you wake up in silk sheets. Oh my God, that's some real talk.
Mm,
He's not waking up
yeah.
in silk sheets, but he's comfortable. He wants for nothing, you know? He does tend to, I don't want to say he operates from a space of fear, but he does tend to react based on fear of. So I do try to I don't talk to him, but in certain instances, like it's okay to be afraid, but you got to push through it. So one of the things I kind of tell him all the time is, when you're going through hell, keep going. Right. So like when you're on the court and he does it, it's funny, right? You see all these different, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but bear with me. So one of the things that when I look
No,
at
I got you. I'm
basketball,
following it.
and what I tell him about basketball all the time is like, I don't care about basketball. I didn't play basketball like that as a kid. I don't care. Right. Microsoft is nothing but a microcosm for life and the life lessons that I need you to learn. Right. So you have a tendency once the defense comes up and now you're pressed against it, you're ditching the ball. You're going right instead of right and forward, you know? And you kind of do the same thing in other parts of your life, right? So you'll get in trouble about something, and I'll talk to him. I'm like, hey, if you had just thought a little bit and pushed forward, this would have been the result. But because you got scared and you tried to pull back, now you're in trouble because I found out, right? Now you're lying to me about something and I found out. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the same thing on the basketball court. If you just push forward, you put in the work, push forward, go, right? It ain't gonna be easy. That's okay. And that's the kind of thing I'm really trying to get them to understand. Like it's not gonna be easy. Like you can do hard things, right? And if you fumble, okay, pick up the ball and coach yells at you, okay, pick up the ball. I'm mad because I'm like, yo, dog, WTF. It's okay. Go forward, right? Like that's okay. Like you can't predicate all your actions on how someone else feels, right? But he's only 11, so it's gonna be a journey, and a lot of that I think I take responsibility for as well because I think I may have in my journey to make sure I had a kid that's early that listened and did what I told him to do. I may have instilled a bit of fear in him, where he's like looking for my validation. He's scared to disappoint me. You know what I mean? And so then he's a little bit upset because like when it comes to my youngest, I give him a lot more leeway, right? I give him a lot more leeway because I don't want him to move like that, right? And so we were talking earlier about the power of no. Like my oldest will come, he won't come to me and say, "Hey, can we go get ice cream across the street?" Right? Because he's already assuming I'm going to say no, right? Which I probably am going to say no. But I encourage my youngest, don't stop asking. I tell him no all the time, but he don't stop asking. All right. And then one day, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, let's go." You know what I mean? And so it's like I'm trying to get the oldest to kind of realize that. But I think as a dad, if we want our kids not to operate from a place of fear, we have to be cognizant of how we build a structure in our home, support the idea that they don't have to be to operate off fear.
Yeah, it's a delicate situation with no because remembering that, my son's 11 years old, 11 years on this planet, they haven't s
Mhm.
there's not a resolve in them yet, and you are the face of their resolve, you're the face of love, you're the face of everything to them, and if you carry yourself a certain way with them, they start to accept that as, "That's the way you
Yeah.
have to be, like, that's what life is," and it can be cemented into their mind and into their
Mhm.
personality, into the way they look at things, um, and it's wonderful that you have been able to reflect and, like, catch that, and it's making me even think about myself and, like, it's where you have like, that tale old, phrase of, like, kids are a
Yeah, yeah.
sponge, right? They soak in everything that you do, and they also when they push that stuff out, you see, like, that's
You.
really you. It's not really so much of them, that's
That's
actually you that
you,
they're
yes,
pushing back out,
yes.
right? So you kinda get a taste of it, and, to your point of, like, these kids now today, I'm like, "They're soft, there's no grit, there's no grind," and it's maybe that is a reflection of how we have led them, and maybe that's a way that, like, we have not given them that it's okay to like, if I say no, it doesn't mean that you quit asking or, like, quit pushing towards something. It's just it's not right now. You gotta learn how to deal with that no, and I don't know, like, as I guess, what are some of the things that you see things that what are different things that you did on the day, like, in those moments that you see in contrast that helped you out with being able to distinguish from your oldest and your youngest on getting them to be like the youngest is like, "I'm always gonna keep asking because that's what I'm supposed to do," versus the oldest one is like, "He's gonna say no anyway, so may as well not
Yeah,
ask."
I don't know, I can't call anything specific that stood out because it's just been a lot, not a lot that's been happening, but, you the day to day, just so much happens, you know? I just
Yeah.
know that I can't distinguish, I just know that, like, just little things you just saw where it's like, "Yeah, I said no, so? Okay." And then I think what I found is now I'm not gonna say I found, I suspect, is he would the oldest would probably tell the youngest to ask for something he knows they're
Mm.
both gonna benefit from. And I'd be sitting here wondering, "You're the oldest, why aren't you asking?" And then I'm thinking, I'm like, "Okay, so maybe does he think I play favorites to the youngest one?"
Or softer
Yeah,
on
well,
this
he's
one.
11, he's
Like,
not thinking
yeah.
softer, he's thinking favorites. That's my assumption. That's my
Ah,
assumption.
okay.
I do not know, and don't
Yeah.
wanna ask
Sure.
because I don't wanna put the idea out there, and if the idea is out there, you gotta work it on your own. I'm not gonna validate it, right?
Yeah.
But that's my
Right.
assumption. So, I was like and even if I'm softer, it's still preferential treatment of some sort, right? And, from my own experience, I know that that can quickly snowball into resentment, and I want them to have a long-lasting, close relationship. I don't want them to be like so many brothers I see out there that or siblings, brother or sister that are adults and like they ain't talked to their sibling in years, right? And they seem to have at events, you know. I don't want that for them. So that's kind of what played again fear, right? That's a fear that was in my mind, came to mind at that point. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything about that, but I just know I can't have this one move like that. I can't they both to some degree need to have the courage to go and ask for what you want and get what you want because the world isn't gonna give you nothing. And if you don't put yourself in position to get something and try to get it, like you still gotta go pay money to win a lotto. You gotta go to the store.
Yeah.
You gotta ask for a ticket. You
Yeah.
gotta fill it out. You gotta turn it in. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like all these things, there's no way somebody just gives you anything. My biggest fear is that, especially in this economy in the world that seems to be coming to fruition, that they're not prepared, right? And that doesn't mean preparation from an educational standpoint per se. It means prepared. Are you able to critically think on your own? And do you know how to spot opportunity? And do you have the courage to go and go after that opportunity? right? Because I don't care
Right.
what walk of life
Yeah.
you come from, without at least 2 of those, you're not gonna go far, and if you have 3 of those, the world's your oyster.
Yeah. You could do whatever you wanna do. That's what I try to get my son to see as well. This, like, if you can go after it because you recognize it and you're not afraid of
Mhm.
failing. You're not afraid of that. We have this saying where it's like failure is the goal because when you embrace the idea of failure, we know it's not really over. It means you learn something and now you can go back and do better. Or for me working out, it's like when you push till failure, you have it like it's not a bad thing. It means you gave your muscles what they needed
Yep,
to grow. They need to grow and change, and in order to do that, you've gotta push them to their limit. You have to push it to as hard as you can. So, failure is the goal, and when you can embrace a mentality like that, you're right. Like, I always tell Cohen, I'm like, "You will be a monster in comparison to other kids. If you can embrace this type
yep,
of
yep,
mentality, nothing can stop you." Because that is such a big bu and I think today with kids, it's even more prevalent because I feel like bullying is way more prevalent than what it was maybe when I was a kid, 'cause, you have social media, so it's happening a lot more versus, like, it only happened at school and then, you got home and then there was
mhm,
nothing and then you went back to school, you might have to deal with it for that short
mhm,
amount of time, but with, social media, it's like, no, you're dealing with it all the time, like, it's a constant reminder of this, behavior and how bad it could be, so, like, there's a lot more challenges that I think they face
yes,
now than what I faced as a kid and maybe what you faced as a
absolutely,
kid, uh, and having that mentality can really set you apart. It's like that void like, that separation now is even
yeah,
wider now. Like, if you were able to do these things, it's like, "Oh, you're gonna be even stronger than what I could be if I was at my optimal at that same age group, given in the society that I was in." Now with what you're in, you'll be worlds
absolutely,
beyond them if you can
yeah,
do that.
absolutely. The challenge, I think, is we as parents being able to balance, as you mentioned earlier, right, the approach, measure, right, and be a little bit empathetic to the fact that they're still babies. And how do
Yes.
we
I have to remind
manage
myself of that all
how
the
do we
time.
manage our output, right? And how we react to our own fear, right? We're saying talking about how do we teach you how to react to fear? Like, bro, we probably need to spend some
Right.
time understanding how we're reacting to our own fear, right? Because I think a lot of our trauma is come from our parents who reacted on their fears completely without the education or the skills to know that there are different ways that things could be handled, right? Um, and in the pursuit of trying not to repeat the cycle, we repeat it anyway.
Yeah. And that's where the critical thinking, I think you said, like, comes into play, is like a thing about critical thinking is that you're able to catch the
Mhm,
pattern, right? That if you're able to, because that's what's difficult, right? Because the challenge would be your parents were this
mhm,
way, you grew up
mhm,
in this.
mhm.
It's like a psyop
Yeah,
of sorts. It's like it's
yep,
all you know. You only know this, right? But to be able to catch yourself and be like, "Hey, did you realize that this is not actually the only option, or this actually isn't okay, or this isn't how you should do things," is difficult when you've only grown up a certain way. Sometimes it could be right in front of you and you wouldn't even see it. But that critical thinking element, the ability to be able to go through an intellectual process of your own behavior or your own environment and draw conclusions that are going to be to your to the betterment of yourself. It's hard, and you're right, like, for me, like, no, like, being able not I'm not the best at it, but I think that I've gotten significantly better at it, but now reminding myself as a dad that Cohen is only 11, and he's not gonna have this he doesn't have the same life experience. He has the same thing because 'cause I'm like,
respect.
always just like, "You don't understand. You don't get it. Like, you do this. Like, I don't understand why you don't understand this. Do you see this?" And, like, you're right. You're making me think about I'm like, I gotta be a little bit more softer on the boy because, he hasn't experienced nearly and he'd be looking at me like deer in the headlights like, "Are you alright?" Are
And
you okay? Because I don't know what you're
so
talking about.
my buddy's in town for work, right? So he comes by the house last night after dinner, and I have her cousins here for spring break. So she's a freshman, sophomore in high school. And somehow we end up talking about like New York and robberies, right? So um and robberies. So like in my family and extended family going on her side, because that's who I end up spending most of our time with, right? Like I'm the Brooklyn kid, right? I'm the N word, right? Like that's me, right? And so I talk real raw, right? And I know they have no experience around a lot of stuff, so I try to tell them about it. Like, yo, this is what's happening. And so we end up talking about robbery and like, do you know what happens when you get robbed? And my boy, who I've known him since junior high school, right? We did jujitsu together, right? And he would talk about robbery and how robberies work. And when it happens, you don't got to worry about it. Just give up your stuff. You know what I mean? Because by the time you get robbed, by the time you know you're being robbed, it's too late, right? So you're better off just calming down, move slow, giving up your stuff. My son is sitting there, Nas is sitting there, and his face is like, right? I can see his mind's turning.
Like,
I'm
what?
like, yo, what's going through your head? He's like, just what we were just talking about. But he doesn't even know he doesn't even know what he's thinking about it, right? Because he can't even
Right.
conceptualize.
He's like, I can't even
not
grab
even
this."
grabbing,
Like
not even grabbing this stuff, right? And me and my boy, I mimicked because I was telling her, I was like, "Have you ever been robbed?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Let me tell you what happens when you get robbed." I was like, "Carl, go down there and you walk this way, I'm gonna walk that way. I'm gonna rob you." And I show her like what happens. I'm like, boom, we stepped in front of them, and then next thing you know, you can't see what's in their hand, yada yada yada. And so, and she's just like, "These are the life lessons I get when I come here." I'm like, "Yeah, because you ain't getting that up in Eugene, Oregon." you know.
right. Like people up there are just, happy and go lucky and, just wanting to go about their
Very
day.
strictly.
Whereas like when you grew up in an area where it's like, nah, man, like this is daily what
Daily,
happens
keep your head on a
here. This happens
swizzle,
all the time.
give me some space, 5 feet, right? Um,
For that from that perspective, do you your son seeing that for the first time, is that something that you think about, like maybe like one of the questions I used to always ask the dads on just like when you're laying in bed looking up at the ceiling and like maybe you're thinking about your kids and like the future, like do you think about the environment in which they grow up in versus in contrast what you grew up in, and how to kind of navigate? It's like what happens if like they're in a situation that like I know what to do because I grew up in that, but do they know what to do in that?
yeah, I s know, I try. I don't know how successful I really will be, honestly, because fear, right, seems to be theme here, like, fear is healthy, right? Fear protects you. Embrace the fear, acknowledge the fear, just don't panic under the fear. And so unless when you have a level of fear and you have to move through it anyway, then you learn how to try and protect yourself. You know what I mean? And they don't really have anything to fear. Like where we live, it's top 10 safest city in the country, like on the books, So it's like my fear now for them is, and this is something I didn't have to deal with. How do I keep them away from drugs? Like where I grew up, you just didn't do drugs. Like, don't even kids were high. Kids got high. They did drugs or whatever the case. We're not saying that didn't happen, but by and large, that wasn't a cool thing to do. Today, that's the cool thing to do, right? The cool thing to do when I was growing up was to be a drug dealer, which is entrepreneurial, you know? Um, today they're consumers. They rather get high and kill themselves, So
Yeah.
that's my fear. I try to show him like, so, like my dad used to throw concerts. He still does throw concerts. He's thrown it my whole life, right? Big festivals, right? That was his thing. And we went to a festival out here. And so I try to take that opportunity to kind of say, hey, we're going to stay over here on this side. If something happens, this is where you stay. This is why you stay, but I can't, unless you have that fear, it's not something that comes to your mind on a regular, you know what I mean? Um, so I try some little things to try and tell them and show them a little bit, but when it's not the same, you know,
Yeah.
it's not the same at all.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. So I want to kind of transition because I looked up this thing and I wanted to know if you remembered this. In 2016, you wrote, let's see, a article of sorts that on
Oh,
LinkedIn. Do you
Jesus.
know what I'm talking
Um,
about?
mm.
About what
I
success,
don't know in that,
what
but yeah.
success looks like. Uh, and I actually I really like the article because I think you were right. Like it goes from there's like this saying that it was like first they doubt you, then they laugh at you, then they criticize you and then you win, right? And you kind of articulated that where it's like first people are going to tell you you don't know what you're doing, then they're going to come to you and they're going to ask you like, oh, I knew you were part of this journey, you did this, and like can I also borrow $100, and like that's kind of how you ended it, right? uh so there's it are like you said, like this is what success looks like. So for you as a dad, what does if you were to kind of take that same formulaic approach to like fatherhood, what does that look like for you where you know like the success of fatherhood, or at least you're on the track towards a successful fatherhood?
You know, I don't know if I can make a one-to-one comparison between the two, right? I don't think I can make a one-to-one comparison between the two, but I can say that I think as a parent, you can't have if you if you have a strict guideline or a guideline or proof point for what success looks like strict, right? So you have like 6-point plan for what success as a parent is going to look like. You're dooming yourself to failure. You don't have that much control over the world. You know, it's kind of like basketball again, right? Where you see the parents come in and like they're acting like their kid's the next LeBron James. Boy is 11. Like you guys haven't even got divorced yet. you know, Right? That hasn't even hit yet,
Yeah.
right? A parent hasn't died, you know what I mean? He had his first
Yeah.
injury, like he hasn't gotten hot. Just so much that can happen between 10 and 18 that you have absolutely no control over that has impact on who you'll be at certain points. So knowing that, I kind of just said, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. If I feel confident that they can critically think, that they show me that they know how to spot an opportunity or they're willing to spot an opportunity and the courage to take advantage of the opportunity, then they're going to be okay, right? Like now, would I love for them? I think Mace said it a few weeks ago where he goes, my kids will follow my plan until they show me that they have a plan of their own, right? And I was like, that's a good one, right? So like I'd love for
Yeah.
I'm not a big college guy per se, but like I'd love for my kid, not a love. If he's gonna go to school, he kind of only has two options if I'm gonna pay for it, right? And that's some sort of engineering degree. It's got to be hard. Okay, so it got to be a hard degree. Two, a trade, and ideally, if they do both, I'm straight. Right? If you can learn a trade in high school and don't get yourself an engineering degree, right? There's no way you can lose in the world to come. You're good to go. So that's kind of like the soft, aspirational things that I kind of try to build in, look for opportunities to try to build in. And then, but the firm one is, can you critically think? Can you spot an opportunity? Do you have the courage to go after it?
I guess with your like maybe with your professional background, like how familiar are you with like AI? How often are you working with like AI and things like that in your professional
Yeah,
career?
so I use it. I use it. I wouldn't call myself like an expert. I use it pretty regularly. I think I go a little bit deeper than a lot of my colleagues at this point. I think a lot of people kind of just use it to write emails. But then as a result, I also find a lot of the gaps as well, challenges with it.
Mhm,
So one of my challenges is trying to marry the vision that these folks in the industry see with what I'm seeing
mhm,
actually using the stuff, right? Because, um, to a degree, the technology itself isn't necessarily there's only one piece of the entire thing that's actually new. AI is a marketing term, right? AI is a marketing term. People are talking their books, right? And so it helps people conceptualize who a lot of people have read science fiction novels, seen Star Wars or whatever it is, so they can conceptualize AI, right? But automation has been around for 15, 20 years. It's been around
Right.
probably earlier than
Yeah.
that, right? Predictive automation has been around just as long, right? So the new technology really there is the learning language model, the ability to communicate with this system in a way that we can understand. And as a result, the outputs, that's where we get hallucinations, right? There's not enough compute, not enough memory, and so on and so forth to really keep context over the long term to use it the way that you saw in the science fiction movies. Right. And so when you use it a lot, that's usually where you end up running into walls when you're outside of that whole like um artist niche, right? Or even coding niche of AI. Um, so when I look at the future, right, again, ignorant perspective, when I look at the future, you know, it is going to be a world where there is a little bit more orchestration of multiple AIs or agents, right? Versus just an AI is going to replace your jobs, right? So, the question is when you're prepping for the future, how can you give yourself some multi domain expertise, right? The world that our kids are going to inherit, you can't just be an electrical engineer, right? Or you can't just be an architect. You can't just be one thing, right? And I think the first professions that know this and realize this are artists, right? Graphic designers, sound engineers. And we know a lot of those folks that are um probably what we wouldn't call neurodivergent, right? No one would ever look and say they're neurodivergent, but we know they are. Like, this guy can engineer, this guy can audio engineer, this guy could graphic design, like he can do it all, but he's only ever doing one thing at a time. He can do photography. They're only doing one thing at a time. But you go ahead and say, hey, dude, here's 8 AI agents that you can use to go ahead and build my commercial. That's a dangerous man.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he can do the whole thing by himself, right? Like, he doesn't even know friends. He doesn't even need an actor, right? You know, and he can build the whole thing out. And so that's the first step. And then I think you're going to see that across all the various industries, which is starting to happen a little bit. But again, you're always going to need that human expertise. So I think for a human to go to school, get educated, you still need to do it so that you know how to validate what the outputs of these AI solutions are and making sure they're correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you brought up some really good points, and like I could tell you, like definitely with like the acting, like in the entertainment industry. I don't know how much you follow it, but like Ben Affleck just sold an AI company to Netflix, right? He's the move that he did with that in itself was so innovative and creative and savvy, uh, because months prior, he was basically telling everyone that what he was doing and what he was gonna be doing, but he just didn't say it outright. But he did say that, like, things like an engineer, like, you have your all the people that are back end that are working on a computer, you guys are in trouble because we can consolidate now that labor and move it into AI that can do what you did and have maybe one person managing the entire system. And that creates more work. They're able to do more work a lot faster. But it also, from a labor perspective, it makes it smaller. So for me, I guess like a fear, because, we've been talking so much about that, is like, you know, 20 years from now, like I have no idea truthfully what the labor market is going to look like. But what I try to instill into Cohen is things that I believe that will always remain true, right? Like we think about it like this, and like in fitness, like how many trends have you seen in the last like 50
Mhm,
years, right? We had
mhm.
jazzercise, we have
Wow,
Taibo, if you
yeah.
remember that, we had Beachbody, we had
Mhm.
CrossFit, and CrossFit's
Yeah,
kind of even
fine.
now started to like lose its popularity. Not saying anything about the
Yeah,
workouts or anything like that, but like we're trendy. Now there was like these hit circuit style, small facilities,
yeah.
F45s. LA has like one called like Training Mates, which is like very similar, right? But they come and they go. The one thing that remains is that squat rack, that bench, and those dumbbells.
It's ain't
Those
going
don't go
nowhere.
anywhere, right? Like it never, like it's they've been there the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
time,
basic.
like and that's like you said, the jump rope. How long? It's been there. Like it's not going nowhere. You can always still, because you can achieve what you want to achieve, and sometimes better than what you do with those other things with these things. If you have these things, nothing can stop you. So what I try to get Cohen to see is like, what are things in the human existence that have never changed? If you lean into those and understanding those things, you're always going to be fine because there are things that have never
Absolutely.
changed. There are things that about us that are always the same. That so if you can understand that, then everything else, it really doesn't matter. Trends will come and go, right? There will be the horse and buggy to the car to the, like it will always transition. There will always be things like that. And if you look at it just from a fear perspective and somebody that doesn't understand that, then you are going to be terrified. I'm like, I would imagine a lot of people are
Absolutely.
afraid of what's to come and what then, but if you can understand that, like, changes are going to come, but these things have always remained consistent. It gives you a little bit of peace. It gives you a little bit of pause. And that's one of the reasons why I asked you that question, like 20 years from now, and like, what do you think it will be like? And if there are things that they're consistent that you see, what are they?
I'll be honest with you, like, 'cause it is something I fear as well. Because there's part of me is like, this is not really tenable. Other part of it's like, yo, but you never really know, because if it is like Bitcoin, right? No one would have thought Bitcoin would be at 100K as it was a couple of weeks ago, right? When it was sitting there, like when it
Yeah.
started popping up in the news for $1. So, I'm trying to be like, yo, it could happen. So don't be delusional. But one of the things for sure I think is salespeople, right? From a marketing perspective, there was a trend, and I might butcher some of the stats. Some of the stats. They say, I think, like probably like 8, 10 years ago. 10. I believe this would be 11. No, probably like 15 years ago. They noticed about 80% of the buyer's journey is already completed before they call a vendor. Right. And that's still the same as well, because the internet, they can go and do their research, they can poke around, they can read, whatever the case may be, but they still got to call a vendor, right? There's a certain level of detail that's not available online from any vendor, right? Some websites you go to for services, they don't even post a price. You still got to go and call the vendor, right? And so I think people like people will buy from people, right? And I don't think there's a world where you outsource your sales to an AI. I don't care how much personality you give it, right? Because I buy from who I like. People don't tend to really buy for the best product. Like, that's a factor, you know? But it's like, can I trust Jeremy? Do I trust Jeremy? Do I like Jeremy? Do I like Jeremy enough to know I'm just gonna put some money in Jeremy's pocket? Sometimes that's what it comes down to. I like Jeremy enough that I'll put some money in Jeremy's pocket. Or Jeremy and me get along so well, Jeremy's gonna go fight for me with his boss, right? To get this deal done, right? And help his boss choose the path that's worse for the entire company, right? Because that's my boy. So it really gets down to that level of that small level of camaraderie and relationship building.
The
Thank
connection,
you.
that human
That human
connection.
connection, like, and
Yeah.
so I don't think that human connection, anything involving value around that human connection, is going away, right? So that doesn't mean the McDonald's fast food worker, that's not a valued human connection. You know what I mean? But the person selling the franchise, right? Or trying to grow additional location for a franchise, like, that's valued. So
Right.
that's what I'd
Right.
call it, right? I have a friend of mine.
It's why do you go to like in a better, like, why do you go to the same crummy
Exactly.
bar? Because of the people that are there, right? Like, it's why do you it's it's there's something to the idea of human connection, which I try to get Cohen to see is like the thing that I'm most like, I'm not afraid for the next 20 years. I'm excited because you're going to matter more. Like, I'm like a human driven person. And I believe, like, I study history in college. So like when you study history and you look throughout the world history, make no mistake, everything changes all the time. Like, it will always change and there will always be a new thing. There will always be, whether it's technologically, whether it's geopolitically, whatever the case may be, there's massive changes that happen, right? What remains consistent are the things that are innately human. and those things are always to us. And I think commerce, business, industry in general is takes components of the human existence to use it as a utility to serve what their goal is, right? A great sales rep that's charming, that's engaging, that's friendly, that's informative, that's concise, can go a long way for a
Absolutely.
company, because if they can do those things really well, they know that from a human perspective, it gravitates towards
Absolutely.
people, right? Like, so that's something that I think is really important to, I think, distinguish for children in the future, is like, you really got to just be you, because more than ever, you are going to be valuable, because in a digital world where everything is, on your
Uh-huh.
phone or in your screen, or
Get
all
quick. Yep.
that has like a it has like an acidic
Hmm.
kind of, like, it's not, it's like, it's there, but it's not there. It's like playing a video game basketball versus
Basketball.
playing
Yeah.
basketball. No one would ever try to tell me that those two things are
Yeah.
the same, right? If you make a 3-point shot on a basketball court to win the
Yeah.
game versus you make a 3-point shot in 2K, you're not there's
Yeah.
there's not
Bingo.
the same. Like, the one is a simulation and the other one is the
Yeah. You
actual
beat me on
reality,
3K.
right?
Now go
So
play me one on one. Yeah.
exactly. Like, you'll see the real
Yeah.
truth of who's really good and who isn't, right? But there there's something to the idea of what it means to exist. And I think that their upside is even higher than ours, truthfully. Like, that's what even in an AI world, I really do believe your value is going to go up as a human being, because everything will become more digitized.
Absolutely. My concern, like I love the hope that you have. My concern is that more people are going to be left behind, right? More and more capable people, because the competition is greater for lesser opportunities or smaller opportunities, right? Um, if you're kind of shrinking the labor market, right, from a one-to-one to a one-to-many type of engagement. Um, so I'd love to be just as hopeful, but I'm just not quite there yet. You know what I mean? But I also think, and I had this discussion with a guy. I also think the system will break, right? Because it has to break. Because I always sit back and look at it as like, well, if the system's designed to extract for the few, but you're also trying to remove the many so that you can extract more out of the few, there's got to come a point where you can't extract anymore, right? So either you got to drop your prices on your goods, which now doesn't put you in a profitable point, which has an impact to your shareholders, which impacts your share price, and then that happened to scale, and the whole economy is now continuing to fall off the cliff, right? It almost seems obvious to me, right? Which,
Right.
not to get into a little bit of politics, but
Right.
even now, I just saw probably last week where the SEC is proposing to do the same type of financial reporting that they do in Britain, which is not quarterly, but I think annually, right? Maybe once or twice a year, right? Which I think is a good idea personally, because I think America specifically has um, the short-term thinking of American businesses that are led by the quarter-over-quarter shareholder returns above all else, has led to real short-term financial thinking, and has had disastrous impacts that are now coming to a head.
I
You
see
know
what
what I
you're
mean?
saying. Yeah. Right.
And in an
Yeah.
AI future that they're predicting, that can't be tenable, right? Because, and this guy that I was talking to about it, he comes from a wealthy family. Guy I work with or whatever, and he said to me, he's like, well, all the goods in the market are already priced for the top 3% of Americans anyway, right? They're not expecting for anything below that to be able to afford it, you know? And that was kind of disheartening, right? Knowing that he's not only comes from a wealthy family, he's also wealthy himself right now because of his job. And that's how he's thinking about it. And I'm looking at some of these articles and these videos of these CEOs speaking, and it's like this is really the future that they see, where it's like a science fiction novel where the only people that buy their goods are wealthy people. but that's not enough people to support the valuations and the businesses that you guys built off of the poor and middle class to begin with. You know, you know. So I don't know.
Right.
I'm just
Right. Well, yeah, and I think that that's there's an opportunity there. That's why I guess I'm
yeah,
optimistic because for you're right, and I think in a microcosm of what you're talking about is like an oligarchical, like crony capitalism versus like what you would see in like a true form of purity of capitalism where there's
yeah,
competition, right? And because an offset to that would be uh, to create more competition to where it forces uh, corporations to lower prices because they want to maintain a competitive aspect of the market share, right? Uh, it, but why I say, I guess, like why I lean more into the optimism of the self value is because we haven't seen well, we kind of have like because it made me think about when we went from horse and buggy to a combustible engine, I people were eager to be industrial. And then experiencing the industrial, people were eager to get out of the industrial and wanting to be away and be separate from it, right? Which is the same way
all
that
this
they were
new.
living
Yeah,
before, but now you kind of so it I that's what I kind of see with this is that we were the last 20 to 25 years we've been so much gung-ho of tech. What can we do with technology? What can we do? How can we grow? How can we faster? And I think that there's going to be a desire for the perfectly
yes,
imperfect,
yeah,
and
yes, yeah.
that's something that humans can do, right? It's like because we're not perfect, where which is why like that's why I guess like
Okay,
the value of like be because you're not perfect and now the imperfect will become even more valuable because when you can just get anything that you
yeah.
want. I heard this one of my friends told me this once. He was saying that his dad told him he's like you could have filet mignon every night, you could have lobster every night, like for your entire life. Eventually you're going to want a cheeseburger, eventually you're going to want a hot dog.
Yeah,
Eventually you are.
yeah.
It's so like it's we're creatures like that to where like
Mhm.
you're gonna desire those things that are just human, right? Those things that are just
Yeah,
us, that make
exactly.
us us. And while I think that you're right, and I'm not taking away from like anything that you're saying, I look at it just from a different perspective of like there's a lane of opportunity here that yes, unfortunately, with any changes, I hate saying it like that because I don't mean it and like I'm very empathetic towards it. Things happen and there are people that are going to be left behind. There are people that are it's unfortunate. It really is. And I wish that there was more that could be done about that. But that's why I think for us as dads, you know, the stakes, the fear is there. It's like, how do you make sure that they don't get left behind? And at first I was always like, you got to have this certificate. You got to do this. You got to do this. And it's like, maybe I just like get to a more of a philosophical sense of getting into the understanding of what does it mean to exist as a human being and look at that throughout history. And that was the one thing that I took away. It was like, you're never going to get away from dumbbells, man. You're never going to get away from barbells. It's never going to go away. It hasn't. It hasn't since its existence. Like we'll always have this. Yes, but we could do this now with tech and we could tie this to you. We could do, I know. But at the same time, like you could just, this is going to be here
Do all
too.
the yoga you
So
want,
lean
use some
into the
dumbbells.
things that are innately human. Yeah, it's like you can't beat it. You can't beat it. So if you lean into what makes you you, you got a better shot than
Yeah,
most
I
people.
agree.
If you're trying to see like what can I grab onto
Yes,
versus like what's
yeah,
you, and you will be able to find a path. You'll find a way.
yes. I'd agree with that. We're on the same page on that one. I think you're seeing it even, online as well with all these fake AI pages and Instagrams and, like, one of the things, like, I'll see something, I'm like, "That's fake, dude," and I show my wife, and we almost now make it a game, right? "Can you tell?" Like, "What do you think?" You know, and it's to that point, it's even the imperfections that they build into the model is too perfect. Weird.
Yes.
It's like, why
Yeah.
that and she was like, "That fold at the hip just something's not right about it."
Yeah.
You know? That fold, the
Exactly.
clothes, like, it's not right. It moves, Moves too much, maybe? I don't know. I can't tell. It just looks weird. So to your point, I think that validates your point.
I think that just because like when you think about AI, and I know like I don't want to
Yeah,
keep you too much longer because we've been like now like an hour, but like I think about it like this, like as a dad, there's too much nuance and complexity from the dynamics from one dad to another that how my interactions with Cohen are drastically different and exponentially different than what you experience. And your experience are going to be drastically different than somebody else, right? There's all these different things, the complexities, the nuances of it that I think a machine can never fully
yeah,
grasp all
yeah,
of it. And technology will never be able to fully grasp all of it, right? If that were the case, I don't think the idea of even having these type of roles wouldn't even really make sense because you could just have a AI
yeah.
mom. You could have an AI dad. You could have, if that were the case, like you don't
They're trying to
really,
tell you,
you could just streamline it and scale and be like, okay, I had my kids and here's their AI
yeah,
dad.
we're
There
good to
you
go.
go. Like you wouldn't have to worry about anything. So like maybe that's the human in me is like, fighting the fear of what the world is to come and really just trying to look at it from like what we've always been since the existence and make sure my kids know that.
Yeah, pick your battles. Can't boil the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is the last little bit of the podcast, and I don't know like if there's anything that you want to be able to shout out or like share with people if there's things that you want people to know about or anything like that. But if not, then we could just call it. But I always give people an opportunity to
Yeah,
do
no,
that.
nothing really. I'm not that big a deal.
You are a big deal. You are a big deal. You guys got to see his page and follow him and see all his workouts. And you'll see exactly how big of a deal this guy is. Kwame, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, man. I really do appreciate it. Like, I'd love to be able to do this again because I actually think that you are very knowledgeable and conversations like this, I think, are necessary to not only like highlight the importance of just black men talking together, expressing the ideas that black men have, but just two dads being able to come together and talk about their journeys as dad and in their life and what they're dealing with and things that go on and fears on a societal perspective and how to embrace that. So I appreciate your time, and it was immensely valuable to me, and I'm grateful for you to do that with me, sir.
Hey, I really appreciate you asking me, man. Like I said, I'm always honored, and then these conversations is great because as we talked earlier, like you never really get an opportunity to really go deep on some of this stuff. At least with someone that's actually open to just an open discussion around something without necessarily trying to solve every single detail from whatever their perspective is. Right? Sometimes it's just good to just like
Yeah.
express yourself and take in some new ideas.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, brother. And thank you guys for listening to another episode. If you guys have any questions, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about Kwame's diet and what he's doing to be so disciplined, how he's able to consistently do it. Maybe you just want to have a dad on that that's a good person for it, that you want to be able to bring onto the podcast. Email us at the After Bedtime Podcast at Gmail or After Bedtime Pod at gmail.com. Subject line it and whatever it is, and then go into a little bit more about what you want to know. And if it is about the diet,
Well,
I promise you, I will send it to Kwame, and I'll get that information back to you. That way, you'll be able to be on the same path in health and wellness that he is on. So, thank you guys so much, and stay tuned for the next episode where we have another great Black American dad.